Hi guys, Drahkis here. The build guide for the Flicker Strike duelist I've been playing is finally here. But before we kick things off, I have a few things I'd like to tell you guys. People have been complaining about the build not having enough defense or having enough damage to do higher content. So while I'll be explaining a few things about the build, I'll be having some gameplay running on the side of me doing a tier 14 map, the Sana, tier 15 twin boss map, and Avis tier 15 map on the side. I'll let you guys be the judge of the build is doing enough damage or how you feel the build is doing in general. Feel free to leave your comments down below and let's get started. The gear you'll be running for this version of the build is first of all the Terminus Est. You need this item. Without the Terminus Est, this build won't work because we need to gain that one frenzy charge on a critical strike. We need the frenzy charges to power our flicker strike. So without it, no flicker strike. Simple as that. The gloves, you want to be using at Sears Acuity. There's a few things about this items which makes it the best in slot here. But you gotta keep in mind this item is very expensive, so there is a few other budget ways to do this, which I'll explain later on. But the reason why this item is so good for us is on our talent tree we don't have much intelligence. This is where this item helps us a lot. And it gives us crit chance, which we need to generate our frenzy charges. It has a lot of life, and it also has the Vaal Pact worked into the item itself. So you can essentially instant leech all your life and mana back without losing your regen, which is very good. And then you don't have to spend a lot of points traveling over to get Vaal Pact. But even so, if you don't have this item, I would not recommend going for Vaal Pact. It's a personal preference, but I personally don't like using Vaal Pact. But you do as you wish. For the head, you want to use the Abysses. When you get the Abysses, you have to be very careful not to getting a too high increased physical damage taken roll. You roughly want to be, I would say 43 is the max you can go. The perfect one would be 40%. But Abysses just gives us so much more damage that there's really no other alternative. The hit enchant on the Abysses, I'm using the 40% increased flicker strike damage. This is not the best enchant to get, but it was cheap. The best enchant you can get would be 9% increased damage per frenzy charge to your flicker strike. But I didn't have the currency to buy it, so I had to buy the 40% damage, and it seems to be working just fine. For the chest piece, I'm using a Calm's Heart. Yes, this is another expensive item, but you don't need this. I'll be talking more about another budget way later on. Boots. You can use whatever you want. I went with the Dark Wave Vectors because the increased move speed per frenzy charge and the additional frenzy charge, it just makes the build work a little bit better for me. But since this build might be a bit hard to get your resistance capped on, you might want to go with some rare boots instead. Then you can get additional life also. On the amulet, you need to get your crit chance up in general. So get some global crit and some crit multiplier, and then just get life resist, whatever stats you're missing with the intelligence or strength or dex, whatever you need. It's pretty much the same thing with the rings. These rings I'm running here, they're not very good. These two rings are just budget rings. If you want to get the most out of your ring slot, you need to buy either a steel ring, which gives additional physical damage, but it's very expensive to get it with all the requirements you have for your rings. Or you need to get a diamond ring, which gives you more crit chance. And crit chance benefits us greatly as we need it to keep our frenzy charges up. Otherwise, get your life, resist, intelligence here, whatever you need. On your belt slot, you want to be using a rustic sash. The increased physical damage on it really gives you a lot of damage. Otherwise you just need to get your life and your resistance. That's pretty much it. You can go for a headhunter here if you really want to, but personally I wouldn't recommend it. A flask setup. I would say the mandatory one is the Taste of Hate. It just gives us so much more damage and we want it. Who doesn't want more damage? The same thing with Lion's Roar. Ton of damage. Very good. Diamond Flask. You want the Diamond Flask to increase your crit chance, so it can generate more frenzy charges and do Flicker Strike a bit often. The Series Promise Flask is optional. It gives a bit of leech, gives a bit of damage, it's good to have. Yeah, so it's a budget alternative. Since Rebirth, it does give you 30% increased damage as Chaos, so if you decide not to use your Sin's Rebirth, I would say go with a Basalt Flask. Maybe one with the prefix to remove freeze, or poison, or warding, whatever you want. But the one important prefix is to get bleed removal on your Diamond Flask. That is the only flask I really need. I felt I needed freeze and poison haven't really been a big issue since we were stacking up a lot of leech. And your jewels. The most important thing to get on your jewels is crit chance, crit multi, and additional life. And that's pretty much all you need on your jewels. You can go for some more elemental resistances if you need it. Otherwise, try and get as many damage mods as possible. The only specific jewel that we need is the Inspired Learning. This jewel is like a mini headhunter. It's just way cheaper and it only gives you one of the buffs from the enemy you kill. And you put this jewel on the right side of your tree. You have 4 notables in the reach of the small radius, so this is the only place you can put this jewel. For your bandits, I took 2 additional skill points. But if you're going for the budget version, you might want to consider going for Alira instead. Alira has the benefit of giving you a bit more resist and some additional crit chance. But in my case I just felt like the additional 2 points would help me a bit more. Let's just take a second here and see how fast a tier 15 boss actually goes down, to all of those who complained about the damage from the build. For our talent tree, we are currently level 90, which means we have 10 additional points to put. I would spend the rest of those points filling out the rest of the Scion life wheel. Also get the Path of the Warrior. It gives us a bit more damage and we like damage. Also get 2 points down here at the Starter Marauder area. A bit more armor, a bit more life, and also get the life regen down here. And for the last point, just put 1 point here under Golem's Blood. This roughly gives us 1k more life according to Path of Building. And for your Ascendancy points, start out with getting Bane of Legends. This makes your leveling progress a lot faster because of the 20% coal you have here. After that, go for the Endless Hunger. This will help you keep alive while leveling. After that I went for the Impact. This pretty much gives you a free melee splash into your build, so you don't have to use the melee splash in your 6-link setup. And this also helped me quite a bit with the speed on the mapping. And once you're geared enough, you can go for the Uberlap and get the Hitsman for the increased damage and the reduced reflect damage. Let's talk about the budget version of this build. If you want to run this on a budget, you're gonna cut out on the Series Acuity, the Calm's Heart, and the 6-link weapon. This roughly means that you're gonna be saving about 50 Exalted on the build itself. But you're also gonna be doing a little bit lower damage than you would with this setup, but it's not a significant difference. First off, you're gonna be removing your Dark Ray Vectors, and instead use Calm's Roots. Calm's Roots, they're gonna give you a lot of life since you're no longer using your Calm's Heart, and it's also gonna make you unaffected by something like Chill Ground, and they're gonna make you knockback immune, which is really great. And besides that, they have Unwavering Stance, which means we can remove the 2 points we put in the tree to actually get unwavering stance. You can take these 2 points and put them into more attack speed or more life or whatever you feel like you need. Second thing you want to be doing is, of course, you don't want to buy a Calm's Heart. Instead, you go and buy a cheap 6-link. This 6-link you're going to be using for your main damage setup instead of in your weapon. A cheap armor based 6-link is roughly 10 KS at the time of the recording of this video. But just try to pick up a little bit of resist and life on the chest piece, otherwise try and essence craft one yourself. For your gloves, if you're not gonna be buying the Series Acuity, you have 2 other options. The first one is to get Meligaro's Virtuosity. These gloves are a great, cheap alternative. They give you attack speed, they give you crit chance, they give you crit multi. Overall, a very good item for the price. If you don't want to be using the Meligaro's gloves and you want to spend a bit more money on your gloves, you should buy the Shadows and Dust gloves. These are really great since they also give you crit chance, crit multi. They have physical damage to leech as mana, which is great. And they also give you Rampage, which overall helps your clear speed by quite a bit. But these are also a bit more expensive. When you do these changes, just keep in mind that you don't need to buy a 6-link weapon. Instead, you can go ahead and buy a 4-link, where you will have to take your setup from your boots and put into your weapon, since you don't have any sockets on Calm's roots. And if you decide not to go with Dark Pact, just like me, because you don't like losing your life regen, and you feel like you need some more defense, I would suggest you spec out of Impact and go into Brutal Fervor instead. This will make your leech way more powerful. But if you decide to do this, you're gonna need to put in Melee Splash into your 6-link setup instead of your damage on full life support, which will gimp your DPS by quite a bit, but at least you'll feel a lot more tanky than you did before. Now, this leads us into our final topic, your gem setup. First of all, of course, you're going to be using Flicker Strike in your 6-link setup. You're going to support that with increased critical strikes to get more frenzy charges from more crits. Multi-strike, more hits. Fortify gives you a nice defensive buff and also increases your damage. Melee physical damage, more damage of course. And on the 6-link with the damage on full life, even though we're running Blood Rage, you will always have this buff active because of your leech keeping you on top with the Slayer Ascendancy. But you're going to be swapping this one out for the Melee Splash if you're going to be running the more defensive budget version of the build. For your auras, you're going to be using a Blasphemy setup with Assassin's Mark. It just overall gives you more crit, and we want crit of course. And then we're going to be using Herald of Ice and Herald of Ash for the increased damage and the Undeath Explosion, which clears out the mobs quite fast. On our boot setup, we're going to be running a Leap Slam setup. We're going to be running Leap Slam with faster attacks, and we're going to be running this with Blood Magic. You want to run this with Blood Magic because you want to reserve the rest of your mana for your actual Flicker Strike. And since we are constantly reaching because of the Slayer Ascendancies, we will never dip down on a life pool while Leap Slamming. And then the 4th link of this setup, you want to be using Endurance Charge on Melee Stun. Just to keep yourself more defensive, you want to be keeping up your Endurance Charges. And on the head, we're going to be using Immortal Call with the cast 1 damage taking setup, so we can avoid getting one-shot by the big mechanics. We're going to use this with increased duration and Blood Rage. You use Blood Rage to give us more attack speed and give us more frenzy charges on kill. And that pretty much brings us to the end of the guide. If there's any question that I haven't answered in this guide, feel free to leave them at the comment section below and I'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible. Otherwise, thank you for watching and please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Take care.